Welcome in, everybody, to the Week 15 preview. Fantasy playoffs are here. We've already started with a horrible, horrendous game, almost as bad, probably worse than the 70-20 game, considering the opponent who put up 63-21. Raiders Chargers, pretty bad. Brian, overall thoughts on that game? And I mean, for fantasy, it wasn't that bad, except for Eckler, really.
It worked out pretty good for. I feel like there was a lot of points scored by guys that didn't get started last night, and maybe you started Zamir White like you did in our kind of out of desperation, where it's like, I guess I have to start this guy. That worked out pretty good. Jacoby Myers might have been started, and obviously Adams had a good game, but no one was starting Bolden or. Did Michael Mayer have 2 touchdowns or just 1?
So many touchdowns. I think just 1.
Okay.
But he had a couple good catches, and yeah, it was tough if you're a Chargers fan, that's for sure, which I kind of am, I guess.
You were.
Yeah, he had 4 for 39 and a touchdown, so yeah, everyone kind of hit. I mean, I was thinking about it going into this game. I was like, man, considering where we were at before this, or like first couple of weeks of the season with both these teams, there's like so many fantasy players, Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer, or Mike Williams, Josh Palmer after Williams got hurt, Everett here and there, Herbert, Eckler, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, like a bunch of guys. And then it came down to like, I guess I'm starting Eckler, and Devontae Adams is like, he's good. He's not like top 5 receiver Devontae Adams, but he's a solid top 20 guy. And he was good this week, of course. But it's just like how much has changed since week 2, 3. When it was just like, yeah, all these studs on these teams, and now it's like barely 2 guys. But yeah, Zamir White looked good. Again, we play in a pretty deep league. Two running backs, 2 receivers, and 3 flexes. So, and I think in any normal league, you're probably didn't start Zamir White, but if Jacobs is going to miss more time, you definitely can. I don't know. Like, if you somehow survived this far with Eckler, are you kind of benching him at this point? Like, what are we doing with Eckler from this point on?
I know it's that one's like really tough. Just real quick, because I already have this kind of in front of me. Talk about Zamir White, and then we'll jump to Eckler, because I don't know the Chargers matchup next week, but I know the Raiders are playing Kansas City, and so I asked you to send me the snap counts for the running backs on the Raiders side of the ball, and it was White by a long shot. But the reason why I wanted to know that is because I know, like, going into it, it was kind of like the early stuff, like the running down stuff, is going to go to Zamir White, and Amir Abdullah will be the pass catcher, basically. Mm-hmm. And that really did seem to play out, even though they didn't really have to, like they weren't necessarily trying to play catch up. Like, there was way less of like some of those situations where you needed Amir Abdullah, but he definitely seemed like kind of involved on that side, and so I think it's going to be a little tough knowing that they're playing Kansas City next week. To which one do you start there? Like, because if we're saying it's purely like game script, it's like, well, maybe Abdullah is like the sneaky start over White next week.
Yeah, I kind of see it as that Zamir White is the Jacobs of this team. I mean, he basically got the Jacobs role. High 60s, 70% of the snaps is kind of what Jacobs has been at lately. And, Amir Abdullah has been, I think unless you watch the Raiders all the time, you don't realize it, but he's been playing 30%, 25% of the snaps. So I think either way, because the biggest one is the 2-minute drill stuff. And Zamir White had 3 snaps in the 2-minute drill. Abdullah had 3 snaps. So they basically split those. Yeah. So even if they are playing from behind or something, like, it's not all going to be third down snaps. So I still think it'll be Zamir White. It's just how many times, like you said, are they going to be able to run the ball? So he's like a poor man's Jacobs to me, like maybe not as talented, but probably going to get 15 plus touches if the Raiders are in the right situation, and I'm not super worried. Like the Chiefs offense is not like, oh, they're good. Like how many teams have they blown out this year? Like I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. It doesn't feel like a lot, so
Yeah.
yeah, but we'll jump into the matchups, five matchups in this, or 5 games in this video, and get through it a little quick. At this point, you kind of know who you're starting, maybe a couple fringe guys. So we'll try not to spend too much time on each one, but we'll see how that goes. Vikings Bengals is our first matchup. This is a Saturday game here. Over unders 40.5. Bengals are favored by 3.5, and just starting with the Vikings. Jefferson's gonna play, it seems like, and you're starting him. Maybe he kind of falls into Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams tier of players, where it's just like they don't have their quarterback anymore, and so they're going to be capped a little bit. But you're starting them. Really comes down to Ty Chandler. Madison's out. How you feeling about Ty Chandler this week? I think he's a solid play, solid low end RB2.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's kind of like, good that you can stick him in this week, knowing that Madison's going to be out. The Bengals are not like great against the run, but they're not bad either. They're kind of just like middle of the road. Like it'll be interesting to see what the Vikings offense in general looks like with Nick Mullins starting. But yeah, I think you can definitely play Chandler with RB2 expectations.
Yeah, I agree. He's right in that like Jerome Ford. I'd probably lean Jerome Ford over Chandler just because Ford has been catching balls. Like he has a lot of catches over the last 4 or 5 games, and I don't know how many Chandler's going to catch. And like him and Najee Harris. Like who are you leaning there? Najee playing at Indianapolis.
I'll probably I'll lean Chandler, I guess. Like Indy's not like a defense I'm like necessarily afraid of playing with the running back. But yeah, I mean Najee. Yeah, I mean he's definitely going to be involved. I don't know. I was going to pull up his snaps, what Najee's been up to, but yeah, I think I'll just go with Ty because I think he's going to basically take over that same role that Madison had.
Yeah, Najee's been basically the same all year, like mid or like right around 50% to high 50%. Doesn't have one in the 60s yet, so that's kind of what he's been all year long. Yeah, don't mind that. So solid RB2 there, and doesn't have to be started, but definitely a pretty good option, I think, in this game. Don't think it's going to be a blowout or anything. Could be a shootout. Who knows? I did go back and look at Nick Mullins. He did start like 8 games in 2018, like 8 in a row. It's kind of his only stretch where he kind of had like consistent starts. And I think it was Matt Breida was the main running back there for 6 of the 8 games, and Breida missed a couple. And I think Breida had like, I remember it was right around 18 to 20 targets, so about 3 targets a game or something. So not terrible. So we'll see if Chandler can get 3 catches. I'm happy there. So
yeah, they're both basically going to have very similar roles in their offenses. So Chandler and Najee. So it's kind of like depending on how you feel about the matchup, basically, is what it comes down to.
Yep. And the Jordan Addison's the other one for the Vikings. He's a tough one. I do think Mullins is better for Addison. So like just looking at where he's ranked according to in the ECR, the consensus rankings, wide receiver 45. I'd put him above guys like JSN, Curtis Samuel, Zay Jones, Josh Downs, just because I think there's a little more upside, and I actually think Nick Mullins is going to be better for him. So like I have him more as like a fringe wide receiver 3. Right in that Brandon Cooks, Beckham, Godwin range, in my opinion. So how you kind of want to avoid Addison this week, or
I don't know. Yeah, he's kind of a tough one, like you said, because like because we didn't even get to see him play last week with Justin Jefferson very much, So, and now with the quarterback change, I don't know how much that would have told us necessarily anyways. So, I mean, he was obviously like definitely startable while Jefferson was out. Yeah, low end number 3 receiver. I don't mind that. Just because we know he can get it done when he gets some volume. Not that he's going to be like lights out necessarily, but he can be a steady wide receiver 3 kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, like Nick Mullins, 2018, he started, looks like the last 8 games of the year that year, and he had 2,200, almost 2,300 yards, 13 touchdowns. So that's 4,600 yards and 26 touchdowns in a full season, 16-game season, which is what it was then. Looks like 2020, he got some starts too. 8 starts, it looks like, as well. And yeah, 2,400 yards, 12 touchdowns. So I think it's actually a solid backup and better than Dobbs for all these receivers. So I don't mind it too much there. And then everyone, I don't think there's much else to talk about with the Vikings. So on the Bengals side, I know a lot of people are going to want to start Browning because everyone's in quarterback hell. Jake Browning, I'm nervous about it personally. Just in the playoffs, starting him. Like, I know he's had back-to-back 24-point, 25-point games, but a lot of it's come on screen production, which is easy to shut down. And the Vikings have been really good against just their defense in general has been really good lately. If you look at, I think it's since week 6, they haven't given up more than 16 or more points to a quarterback. And that includes Purdy, that includes Derek Carr, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. So some decent quarterbacks in there too. So where are you at with Jake Browning? I know a lot of people are going to want to start him.
Yeah, I don't want to start him. Like you said, though, a lot of people are in quarterback hell. So I feel like there's probably someone on the waiver wire, or there was anyways, like that you got that you can start over him. I'm looking at a lot of the guys that are ranked like right in front of him, and it's kind of funny how these guys are kind of piling up. But yeah, it's like if you got Jordan Love or even Goff and or Stafford off the wire, it's like you're definitely starting those guys. The guy right in front of him, Kyler Murray, or no, I guess Geno is right there too. It's like those are kind of tough. I'd probably rather start Geno, but Kyler's tough because he's playing San Francisco. But
yeah, I'd still start Kyler. Like I can't start. Like I'm just looking at like 1, 2, 3, 4 games. The 49ers have given up over 20 points this year to a quarterback. Last week to Drew Lock, they gave up 17. Like I just think Kyler's talented. Like he can overcome matchups sometimes. So, and I just think this Vikings defense is a little bit more talented than we're giving credit for. Like they kind of got lit up in the beginning of the year. 26 points to Hurts, 29 points to Herbert, 19 points to Mahomes. But yeah, since then, since week 6, they've been really good. So, yeah, I'd be nervous about starting him in a playoff game. And because of that, like T. Higgins, like what are we doing with Higgins? Is he kind of in that Godwin, Cooks, Beckham range of fringe wide receiver 3s, or is he a step above them?
Yeah, I really don't know what to do with Higgins. Like, obviously, it's been a very bumpy road this year. Like, not super productive when he was playing. Joe Burrow injury really contributed to that, and then he was injured. And he's come back for a couple of games, hasn't been that good. So I feel like you can probably keep him on the bench. Like I'm fine with you starting him for sure. Like especially if he's like your flex guy, which he very well could be at this point if you made it to the playoffs without him, essentially, without him being good for sure. So if he's on your team, like you probably have better options, but like in a pinch, depending on, let's say you lost Nico Collins or something last week, and Christian Kirk the week before or something like that. Like, it's like, yeah, you could definitely start him. Like, you can make the case, but not looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always big play potential, but yeah, they're not throwing too much. Like 24 pass attempts last week, 26 a few weeks ago, 37, but that was in an overtime game. It's just not. They don't want to throw it that much, so I just feel like it's at best you're getting like 6, 7 targets, and yeah, T Higgins can turn that into something good. But if they're all screen passes, like they could be, 4 for 30. So um, yeah, kind of that fringe, maybe a little bit more upside than those guys we mentioned, the Godwin, Beckham, maybe not Cooks, similar to Cooks, I think, potential upside. So, yeah, we'll move on. Other guys, Mix and Chase or starts. So, um, move on to the next game, the Steelers and the Colts. Over under is 42.5. Colts are favored by a point, minus a point and a half. The Steelers, I just never know what to do with these guys. Like, so hard. I will say Pickens is out for me. There's just a lot of drama with Mike Tomlin, and just he's not been producing. And I don't know. I just think he's kind of in the doghouse there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what are you talking about? But no, I totally know what you're talking about. Like you see it on the field and shit like that. It's like he's like giving up on plays and shit, which is kind of funny because it seemed like that's what was going on with Deontay like a few weeks ago. Like there was kind of stirrings about that, or like he just gave up on a play. It's like, what the hell? I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of drama going on there.
Yeah,
I totally agree. Like I'd say, yeah, Deontay, Najee are fine starts, but yeah, Pickens, I think I'm gonna avoid it. He is on the field a lot and he's getting some targets, but he's not doing a whole lot.
Yeah, no, he's out there definitely, but yeah, I don't want to start him. I don't want to start Freiermuth. I'm kind of shying away from. Well, we'll start with Deontay. Like I put him like right above the Beckham, Godwin, Cooks, T Higgins group, just because I think his floor is a little bit safer. That's basically the only reason why. Like I think it's going to be pretty hard for him to bust, like have a bust game. I just don't see that happening. Like I can see in half PPR, I can see a 7, 8, 9 point game, but I'd be surprised if he had anything lower than that, unless he gets hurt, of course. So that's why I have him like slightly above those guys. But if you need upside at all, like throw in Brandon Cooks over him, I'm fine with that. Or throwing in T Higgins over him, I'm fine, for the upside. And then Jalen Warren, like he's kind of right there with Najee, like fringe RB2. You kind of know what you're going to get with them, right? Like 12 touches, and you just need him to bust off a big one. Like that's just kind of the fact of the matter with him. Like I think one game, looks like, just quickly looking, he has 3 games over 12 touches, but he's in that like 12 to 15 touch range. More likely he's going to get closer to 12 than 15, in my opinion. So, where are you at with Jalen Warren?
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it. Like he's still like he's been what he has been like all year. We haven't seen a great game for him, but he wasn't necessarily supposed to be that. Like we were hoping he was going to take over a little bit, and obviously, like he's just very consistent. Like a quarter of his work is basically going to be in the passing game, and we've seen him break off those runs every now and then. Runs after catch or just straight up rush. So, like, yeah, and you could definitely do worse. Low end, or basically like he's an RB3, so he's flex worthy.
Yeah, and Najee's right there too. Like him, Chuba Hubbard, Jerome Ford, Ty Chandler, throw them in the same boat. Like flip a coin. They're probably going to get 15 plus touches. All those guys, maybe Ford, maybe not, but they're probably going to need. You're hoping to get 10 to 12 half PPR points. You're happy with that. If they could get a couple touchdowns, any one of those guys, and then you have a big game. So
yeah, I think Freiermuth also is still startable. Like he's definitely like a streaming tight end kind of. Like he's still involved in the passing game. Like it hasn't been much yet. Like we haven't seen much yet, except outside of that one game since he came back from injury, but. He's still basically getting 5, 6, 7 targets, or and then just kind of we can see what happens there. But I don't know. I think you could definitely. Hopefully, you had someone else, but I don't even know why you picked him up if you already had like Trey McBride or something like that.
Yeah, just a bye week or something.
Yeah.
And then the Colts, I think, are a really easy team. Pittman is a must start. Zach Moss, we're always going to say start because the guy's playing 90% of the snaps. He's getting 20 plus touches. And like the slot machine, I always reference like a slot machine. Like it hasn't hit in the last 2 games, even though you've spun it 20 plus times. And the guy next to you spun it 5 and 1, but like you're still always going to choose 20 spins on the slot versus 5, like he's just always going to be in that top 15 running back range. So I'm starting him unless you're just stacked. Minshew, I guess, is like the main one to talk about. Like, Pittman, we're starting. Josh Downs, I kind of want to get away from. I just don't see a whole lot of upside there at the moment. So maybe they have a shootout game. But I guess Minshew, just because the quarterback situation, like, is he, where do you have him in comparison to Jake Browning? Above him, safer? You feel safer with him, or lean Jake Browning, or basically see him as like the same guy?
Pretty similar. I think I'd rather start Minshew over Browning. Yeah, it's kind of a tough one. I mean, he's definitely, I think, kind of like maybe like the safer play but lower ceiling type of guy. Minshew is. So, yeah, I like the I like the matchup too. Like I know Pitt isn't like they're like quarterbacks against them aren't necessarily like doing like super well, but I don't know. I think they can work their way around Pitt's defense.
Yeah, they just gave up 240 and 3 touchdowns to Bailey Zappi,
Yeah.
Which is weird because they have shut down other quarterbacks. They're eighth fewest points to quarterbacks, but there's some good games in there. Garoppolo, Stroud, Jordan Love had a fine game. Bailey Zappi last week. So I agree. I like Minshew more, and Minshew's throwing it more. We talked about Browning has like less than 25 attempts in 2 of 3 games. Minshew's almost 40 in 3 straight games. So they're just throwing the hell out of it. So anything else with the Colts? I think that's a pretty easy team.
Yeah, no, I think we're good. Point.
So the Broncos and the Lions is the next one. Who do you think wins this game? This is it would have been crazy to ask this a month ago, like who wins this game, but different. It's the NFL's a short season compared to the other sports leagues, but it's really not. Like so much changes week to week. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Who do you think wins this game?
Yeah, and on that note too, like the games matter more because there's so much less of them, and you kind of have to be quick to react to it a little bit, but you don't necessarily want to overreact either. But definitely, I don't think it's an overreaction at this point. Like the Broncos are good, they might win their division. No,
they could.
I know they could, but I think
they still have a game with the Chiefs. Or no, they played the Chiefs twice, like in 3 weeks, so they don't. But
yeah, and they went 1-1 in those games, didn't they?
Yeah.
But the Lions. I picked the Lions in the pool because I thought that was like the kind of the safer bet. And Vegas is telling us that's the safer bet in a straight up matchup, So I don't know, but you can't take away with what the Broncos have done. So I like the over/unders approaching 50. So it's like that's really good when it comes to firing all these guys up.
Yeah, could be one of the better games for sure. I agree. I went with the Lions. Maybe it's kind of homerish. I do want to see them do well for our dad and stuff, but I think if they win, they clinch a playoff spot, which would be nice. But over/unders 48. You mentioned or kind of referenced it. Lions are favored by 4.5. I think both these teams are pretty easy in terms of like who to start and who not to start. With the Broncos, it's Sutton, Mr. Touchdown Man, starting. Just don't fight it. Just just let it happen. It's happening. So again, could be a shootout type of thing. So
and remember what we said. The floor is there too. Like he's got a touchdown in, let's see, 6 out of his last 7 games. No, 7 out of his last 8. And if he didn't get the touchdown, like in that one game, he still had basically 8.5 points. So and then if he does, which he has most of the time, he's going to get you 15. So start him up.
And like you said, he has touchdowns in 10 of 13 games this year because he doesn't have a multi-touchdown game, so he has 10 touchdowns.
I was just kind of noticing that too. I was like, I wonder if he'll ever get 2 touchdowns. But that would require Russell Wilson to actually throw more than a touchdown. I don't know if he has been. Yeah,
and just really. Like without actually looking at the math, I know Russell Wilson went like 8 weeks without throwing for more than 200 or like throwing for more than 200 once. I think he did it last week, but just kind of looking at like Sutton's numbers of like 53, 66, it's like, okay, that's like a third, a fourth of of Russell Wilson's yards. So if he does happen to get to like 250 and that math kind of lines up still, then yeah, you're looking good. Javonte is kind of in like that Zach Moss territory, maybe not playing as much, but he's going to get 15 to 20 touches, and I'm probably just going to roll with that unless, again, if you have a bunch of guys who are better, like Zach Moss or Kyron, fine, but you should know at this point he's like a mid to low end RB2. So it really comes down to the quarterbacks for me for both these teams. Like Russell Wilson, do you have him top 12? Like, do you think he's like a top 12 guy this week, low end QB1, considering all the freaking injuries?
Yeah, it's kind of tough because it's like, all right, does Tua have Tyreek? We don't know that still, right? Unless he has a bad matchup against the Jets. So it's like I'm starting him over Tua. I feel like Goff, hasn't he been like a little slow like these last few weeks? I'm pulling him up real quick. No, not really. Actually, it was just last week. So that's just recency bias. But I mean, they're ranked right next to each other. I don't think that's incorrect. Like, Kyler and Trevor Lawrence have bad matchups too. They're right after him too, so it's kind of like I think he's kind of ranked right where he needs to be. I think I might start him over Sam Howell, but not over Jordan Love given the matchup there. So yeah, I think he's kind of right there, right around 10 or so.
What about the same game, Goff versus Russ?
Probably go with Russell Wilson there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure it's close.
Look at if you look at Detroit, they've been really, really bad.
Oh yeah, they're ranked 30th against the quarterbacks.
And you just look at recently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the 13 games they've given up 20 or more points to a quarterback. Another one they gave up 19.5. So essentially, what did I say? 8. So 9 of the 13. So yeah. They're and 4 in the last 5 weeks over 20 points. So yeah, they've been really bad since their bye week. So I like Russ more than Goff as well. But they're both, to me, right there, like low end QB1s. So yeah,
it's just tougher because I think Goff has the better passing options with Laporta, Monroe St. Brown, and Gibbs. But yeah, like it. I mean, and Denver's like we're kind of middle of the pack when it comes to that. So it's a coin flip, really. But I think if I had both, I'd probably start Russ.
Yeah, and Russ can give you a rushing floor, which Goff will never do. So looks like Russ has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games of 30 or more rushing yards. So I like that as well. He can do that on the ground. Yeah, and that's really it with this game because on the Lions side, you're starting Gibbs, Montgomery, really good matchup for them. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I know he's been bad for 2 weeks, still starting him. Laporta, still starting. So,
yep,
we can move on. We got 2 more here. We got the Falcons and the Panthers, one of maybe the lowest over/under of the week at 33.5. Again, before this year, I feel like I'd be shocked by that over/under. Not this year. We've seen in the 20s. So,
yeah.
It's Falcons are favored. No surprise. Again, because these teams are kind of bad. Like Bijan, you're obviously starting. Kyle Pitts, if he's still your tight end, that's just kind of how we feel about him. He's still your tight end, you're starting. It's whatever. It's really Drake London. Like I think 3 wide receiver leagues, you kind of have to start him because you have that. What do you have? 10 for 160. Like you have that potential with Drake London.
Yeah.
172. Yeah.
Yep, 172. And
sorry, real quick. Are you worried about like the Panthers kind of being the Texans of last year, where they're third fewest points to quarterbacks and fifth fewest points to receivers, mostly because people run on them? Are you worried about that?
Yeah, a little bit, because they have a good 1-2 punch still with at running back with Bijan and Algier. Like they can both they can do that. We've talked about like that narrative like over the last like several weeks with Carolina, and it's holding up. Like so it's like, yeah, I guess it is a real thing. So it does worry me a bit, but like you said, 3 receiver leagues, like I don't see how he's not at least a flex there as a wide receiver 4. Like he's getting the he's the number 1 pass catcher on the team, but he's kind of tough to get away from, but you're not happy about starting him because there's no floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's I'm just looking at it now. I think it's slightly misleading. It looks like, from just kind of quickly looking at it, they've only had like 2 big games, like 2 games in half PPR over 15 or 16 points or something. They seem to almost every week give up double-digit points to a receiver. Olave, week 2, Metcalf. Like almost, there's only been a couple weeks where they haven't given up a double-digit points. So if that's going to be the case, it's going to be London. So, I think he's a fine 3 wide receiver league start. But yeah, they could, man. Bijan could just, and Algier, but Bijan could just have a monster week. Like, you hope so. I mean, we expected that from Kamara last week, and he didn't really have. He had a good week, but not a monster week. So, I think we're in agreement there. And the Panthers side, like, is it just Chuba Hubbard at this point? Like, he has over 20 touches. I know it's not exciting. The Falcons, I don't really know what to make of their defense. Like, it comes out as good, like 4th fewest to wide receivers, 4th fewest to running backs. But I just feel like it's not good. It's kind of like a weird, like, they have given up some games to, Rashad White, Derrick Henry, Madison had a good game, Brian Robinson. Are you just kind of, where's Chuba for you? Like, again, is he in that Najee, Ford, Chandler range, maybe a step above him because he's going to get 20 touches?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Like he's been good the last 3 weeks. Like it's definitely like his backfield. And it's like, I don't necessarily fear the Falcons a bunch as far as like putting up a ton of points on them. Divisional game, so they know how to play each other, and I'm sure that's going to involve a heavy dose of Chuba Hubbard. I mean, Bryce Young's not getting it done, so. Yeah.
No, he's not. It should be a close enough game where they can run it that much. So, Thielen, he had an okay game, 5 for 74. Like, is he back into like 3 wide receivers leagues and a flex? Like, probably starting him, or like,
maybe as a flex. Like, I don't know. Like, it just depends. Like, I'm sure you probably could have picked him up off the waiver wire, or maybe he was like still rostered in most leagues just because people like that got the treat of the beginning of the year, but there's no floor anymore. There's no real consistency. I mean, he's been fine. 3 out of his last like 6 games, but he does have the potential to just like bottom out. But I mean, Bryce Young is throwing it, 30 times a game at least. So there is that, he's probably good for 7-8 targets, but not a huge ceiling.
Like, where do you line him up with like Deontay, Beckham, Godwin, like those guys? Like, I kind of like, I might lean Thielen over all those guys. Just like, I feel a little bit more certain that Thielen's going to get 8 targets versus those other guys. Maybe not Deontay, but like a Beckham, Godwin. I don't really know. And Godwin might not even play, I think, by the way. Maybe not. I don't know. I have to check Godwin, the injury report. I thought he might miss the game, but anyways, what do you think?
Yeah. I think he's missed
compared
two days of practice. But yeah, no, I think I think I'd still rather start Beckham and sorry, who else did you say? Oh, Deontay definitely over Thielen, I would say.
Godwin.
Yeah, Godwin's tough because he's just not doing anything with it. But I mean, I guess it would depend on like the matchup. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of right in that range. I'd say like him and Godwin will be back to back.
Yeah. Yeah, I just feel a little bit more certain like that he's going to get points or like targets versus like a Beckham. Like Beckham definitely has more upside, but what's funny is I'm just looking at it now. Like Thielen, after his first 7 weeks, was a monster, but since week 8, I think if you had told someone, hey, you're going to get almost 10 points a game in PPR from Adam Thielen, he's going to be a top 36 receiver. If you told us that at the beginning of the year, we'd be like, all right, I'll take it, But then we're just so disappointed because he's not winning us weeks, Like he still has 1, 2, 3, 4 double-digit point weeks in PPR over the last 7. So it's not terrible, but expectations change.
Yeah, it's definitely that because he was helping you win early in the season, but like he's been what he's been. Like I mean, the Carolina has not gotten any better really. Like the only thing that's emerged from there is Chuba, basically as basically a must start guy, RB2. So yeah, I don't know. I think, like I said, like you could definitely still start Thielen, but it's gonna be tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just hoping there's a little bit of a floor, which, again, 2 of the last 3 games, there really hasn't been. That's the scary part. But anyways, that's it with the Panthers. We'll move on to the last game, the Bears and the Browns. Over under 38. Browns are favored by 3. I think the Bears win this game for some reason. I picked them. I don't know why. They're only a game out of the playoffs. Last playoff spot. The Bears.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's in the playoffs. I mean, the Bucs
it is,
and and they're under 500 again, just like last year.
I know it's crazy, but yeah, I think there's like 20 teams within like a game of missing or making the playoffs. But Fields has been great. Starting Justin Fields, I'm still starting him over guys. I know he's ranked behind like Stafford, Purdy. I still want to start Fields over those guys because of the rushing floor. Like, would you be surprised if the 49ers put up 30 points and Purdy has no passing touchdowns because it just went to like Debo and CMC rushing? Like, you wouldn't be shocked. Like, that could still happen, Yeah. Whereas I just don't think that's going to happen with Justin Fields ever. So that's why I understand starting those guys over him, but I still want to start Fields over those guys. It's not a huge conversation, but what do you think with Justin Fields?
Yeah, no, I think it's totally legit. I was just like kind of like thinking as you were because you brought up Brock Purdy. It's like, well, so who has the safer floor? Brock Purdy or Justin Fields. It's like obviously they have floors for different reasons. Purdy is just because his team is so good and they can make plays after the catch. So he's like guaranteed to have like at least 1 touchdown, and then most likely multiple. Mm-hmm. But Fields has the rushing floor. So no, it's kind of an interesting conversation. I like Fields this week, and I did pick the Bears also in the pool because I don't know why. I guess
they've been playing well. Their defense is better, so I mean they have motivation to win. Like they can win and not ruin their draft pick. I mean they have their own draft pick, but they have the Panthers one too. So it's like they're not. They have no motive. The coaching staff needs to win to save their jobs. So yeah, all the motivation there. And again, like I'm not going to argue if you start Purdy or Stafford over Fields. Like it's a dumb argument, but that's just kind of how I approach it. DJ Moore's a must start. Komet again is in there if he's your starter. He's been, I believe, pretty good since Fields came back. I'm just gonna double check that. Maybe not. That's standard. Let's see. Oh, he's tight end 6 on the year. Yeah, I mean, he's been fine. 7.8, 9.1. You know, I don't know. Like he's just one of those tight ends. Like, if he's your tight end, like I'm fine just rolling with him. The running backs are the big one.
Yeah.
Is it just Deontay Foreman's the only guy you're even thinking about starting? Has to be, right?
Yeah, like he would be the one if I was gonna start one, but I'm not so sure I want to.
Yeah.
You know, like definitely would like to avoid like all of them, basically, if possible. Like, I mean, the Browns aren't like a shutdown, like run defense necessarily. So I don't know. They are in like the top half of the league, but they're still they're right in the middle, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, they're pretty beat up too, I think. Defense.
Yeah, I just maybe give it another week, and then hopefully Deontay Foreman, like you can win without him, and then you can play him against Arizona the week after if he kind of keeps that 50% target share, or sorry, not target share, snap share.
Snap share. 50% target share. Damn.
Yeah, right.
Deontay Foreman. No, he's Gus Edwards on a worse offense. You know, like if he doesn't get a touchdown, you're disappointed. You know, so he hasn't had a touchdown. Well, he didn't have a touchdown last week. You know, 11 for 50, like 2 catches, 22 yards, whatever. So that's kind of where he's at. And then just the Roschon thing's not happening. Khalil Herbert's not happening. They don't like him, I guess. And then the Browns. They're I was looking at it. I think since Flacco took over for 2 games now, the Browns have thrown the most passes, more passes than anyone else. They have like 89 passes, almost 90 passes in 2 games. It's just like it's so weird. But Andy, are you like how desperate do you have to be to start Joe Flacco over Minshew or Browning, or you're not going that far?
I might start him over Browning. I don't mind that, honestly, but probably not over Minshew just because we've seen like the consistency from Minshew. Not that we haven't seen it from Flacco like these last 2 games, but I don't know. I feel like this happens a lot where, you know, an actual like starter comes in as a backup, and he's like, yeah, he's totally like competent, you know, as a passer for a couple of games, and then they just like fall off of a cliff. You know, it's like, well, oh yeah, that's why wasn't on a team. You know, like that kind of thing. So I think Minshew. I think I'd rather start him over Flacco.
Yeah. That's fine. I'm not going to argue there. Yeah, he's like right there. So if you want to take your chance with Flacco, like he's actually been pretty good. Amari Cooper, I'm probably going to throw him out there like in 3 wide receiver leagues. Again, they're throwing it that much. He hasn't really produced lately. I'm trying to remember. He had 14 targets last week. Yeah, you got to start Amari Cooper if he's going to get 14 targets. Like, and he had 5 the week before, and I think he left that game early.
Yeah,
that Rams game.
Only 32% of the snaps. So there you
go.
go.
2 games now, he's basically on pace for 15 targets almost. So yeah, you got to start him, and Njoku, you have to start too. I think he's going to benefit from that. He had a big week last week, so yeah. And then Jerome Ford just keeps doing what he's doing, right? Like, I think he had how many catches did he have last week? Like 4 or 5. Once again, though, he put up 10.5 points. We talked about it last week. Like, if you need 10 to 12 points, this is the guy.
He'll eventually get a touchdown and give us more points, even though there is a couple of games. Oh no, it's just one where he basically did get about 10.5 points with a touchdown. So.
Yeah, he's looks like 21 targets over the last 4 games. Like, you'll take that, 3-4 catches. Yeah, he's Mr. Consistency. So, anything else from these matchups, this game here?
No, I think that's about it. Sorry, my nose is so itchy. I don't know what the hell's going on right now. I just can't stop touching it.
It means bench Justin Jefferson this week in redraft. That's what it means.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the bye, so I'm definitely gonna do that.
Oh yeah, in redraft, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely needed the bye in redraft. Like, man, I don't know. Like some of my matchups, I'm kind of like, I wish. I think in my PPR league, I've got the bye in that week or in that league as well, and I'm kind of like, man, I feel like a lot of my guys are gonna go do good this week specifically, but I kind of want a lot of my guys that I have in those 2 leagues with the bye, like Nico Collins and Tyreek Hill and stuff. I'm like, it's fine. Just take the week off, get healthy. I need you next week. You know?
Yeah. When Nico's out, I think that was announced like an hour ago.
Yeah, he is
doubtful. So yeah, I think most people feel. I obviously you want to buy every year, but I feel like this year especially. I'm just looking at like the 5 teams that are competing in our 6 in our redraft league. Is like, yeah, I can see any one of the 6 playoff teams winning it all. Like, and usually I feel like there's like 2 or 3 guys, and the other there's like a couple that kind of just made it, but I don't know.
I really
good to have the bye.
I thought your week, because I know you were like contemplating, like, do I start Zamir White? Because you lost some pretty important pieces and stuff, and you traded away a couple to get Josh Allen on your team. Yeah, so it was kind of like last week. I felt like was going to or last night rather, was going to tell the tale a little bit because you had to start Zamir White, and obviously he got you 17 points in our league. So yeah, it's like, all right, yeah, I think you should feel pretty good about making it to the championship. Obviously there's a lot of teams left to play and all that stuff, but that's a great start from a waiver wire pickup that I wouldn't have had the balls to start because I definitely have. I didn't even want to pick them up actually because I was like, why? Like, I was like, whoever I drop, someone's just gonna pick them up instead. Like maybe Dowdle I could have dropped, but I don't know. I'm just handcuffing some guys.
Hey, it does make it a little easier when you're deciding between like Zamir White versus Mingo versus Douglas versus John, like a bunch of just like. But you do have to choose right, and a lot of times we choose wrong. So I'm glad I probably chose right. I mean, we still have to see. I definitely did over Johnston, but still have to see Mingo, Douglas, Clyde play. But I would feel pretty confident I chose right out of those guys. But anyways, we'll finish up there. We'll be back with 5 more matchups. And we'll catch you guys in the next video.